My name is Nicholas Bell. I'm the chief film critic with IONCINEMA, and it's my pleasure to be speaking with Karolis Kaupinis, who's the director of Nova Lituania, his debut feature film, which premiered at Karlovy Vary in 2019 and is the official submission from Lithuania for the Best International Feature Film.
Hello.
So it's interesting because your film premiered and traveled the festival circuit in 2019. You won a Golden Athena Award at the Athens International Film Festival, several awards at the Lithuania Film Awards, Best Director at Wiesbaden Go East, and now here we are in the midst of a pandemic, and you are the official nominee from your country. So I think it's interesting you've gotten to straddle having audience reception versus, you know, in a normal world, you would be here in LA and we'd be speaking in front of a live audience, which, you know, you lose a little bit of the energy and the reaction to your film. But otherwise, how has that experience been as this unfolds?
It's a bit difficult to wrap it up, you know, now after, because it took so long. I mean, I almost forgot how it started now. That world of 2019 now seems totally different from what we are living in, you know, today. So, I mean, we are where we are, you know. I'm sitting here, 9 p.m. Los Angeles is as far as it can be, you know, and I don't know, those days are already far away. So recent months, they were quite okay. We went on Mubi, which spread the film. The reach of this platform is pretty big. So we managed to make it seen by audiences in different countries. Maybe it's even a bigger reach than the festivals themselves, you know, because there you have a limited audience. But so far it's been good for a debut film, you know.
Right, yeah. It's a very impressive debut. And I guess maybe let's start at the beginning with the origins of how this film came about. You directed 2 previous short films that were not period pieces. So what brought you to 1938, Lithuania, a very specific point in time?
Similarity to contemporary Lithuania, and not only Lithuania, maybe, I don't know, Western Hemisphere in general. I would say some kind of tension, some kind of anxiousness about what is about to happen, you know. And I don't really think about it as a historical film, neither. I start thinking likewise. I mean, thinking whether it should be a period piece or not. I mean, that follows as a result already of other choices, thematic choices probably. But in this case, basically, it was the life of this geographer, the alter ego of the main character, whom I knew for quite some time. There is a theater play made in Lithuania by a Lithuanian playwright, which I saw when I was in my late teens, you know, and since that I was thinking about the guy and about his impressive life. And this reserved Lithuania was one of his extraordinary ideas. And somehow this desire to find a place or a person, or I don't know, a time where everything is different, where everything is better, is probably a universal idea from wherever you are, you know. So that interested me for quite some time. I wrote different drafts, and some of them took for like 30 years of his life, you know, but then I basically decided to shrink it to these last years before this end is approaching, you know, the last years before the some kind of collapse of history in perspective of this century.
Right, yeah, because this was on the eve of like the annexation of Lithuania.
Yeah.
And although this it is presented to us is a kind of a satire in a specific time and place. Yeah, it definitely feels universal and contemporary to well beyond Lithuania. So the character of Felix, that's based on an actual person and actual ideas about the reserve, or as the subtitles sometimes show, the backup Lithuania.
Yeah, that's based on a person whose name is Kazys Pakštas. He was a Lithuanian geographer. Basically, he established the modern science of geography in Lithuania after his studies in US. He emigrated to Chicago in, I think that was like 1914, and then came back to Lithuania after the First World War. Worked in a university until 1939, when he once again departed to East Coast, Ellis Island. He arrives as a professor with the ability to teach, I think, a semester in Berkeley, or something like that. And then just he could not come back anymore. There was no country left for him. So he remained in the United States and was teaching in different universities until 1959 or 60, when he died in Florida. So basically, throughout his life, he had this idea of reserve Lithuania. At the beginning, he was more trying to, let's say, seeing the Lithuanian diaspora disappearing, these immigrants coming to US and assimilating this culture, disappearing in a big city as Chicago. He wanted to have a place where you could preserve something, you know. So at the beginning, he thought about it from this perspective, but later in the 1930s, when he saw the two totalitarian regimes on both sides of Lithuania's geographic location, he decided that it should work better as some kind of, you know, a place where you could basically bring a government in exile and continue the statehood of the country. In reality, I mean, in his writings, it's not as crazy as it seems to be. You know, it's not that big dream of a colony somewhere. It's more of a political solution for a problem without any good solutions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was. That's why there's a very humorous element to his plans and how they come across, which reminded me of, you know, the stuff of science fiction almost, or I was reminded of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged a bit as well in his thought processes presented here. But it feels meticulously well researched in tone, and as to the conversations that would be happening while there's this foreboding, like they're about to be devoured by the Germans per se. The casting I thought was pretty great. The man playing the president, who's playing Joza Palionis, you've used him before. He was in The Noisemaker, correct?
Yeah.
And I really liked the lead, Aleksas Kazanavicius. And he had kind of a Gary Oldman vibe to me. And I love the juxtaposition of, well, actually paralleling of how both him and Jonas Service are kind of very similar in that they're failures professionally and personally, kind of, and this is a last-ditch attempt to create something. I just found it very enjoyable and strangely contemporary. I love the look of the film, the aspect ratio. Do you want to speak about the technical ideas behind creating the film?
Well, you see, it's a debut film, a period film. I have a limited budget I can gather for such a film, and still I want to make a period piece. So naturally, that somehow pushes me towards less is more type of solutions everywhere in all the domains of filmmaking. In this particular case. And I was looking for some kind of aesthetics where, by showing this void he's talking about, by showing the emptiness, this emptiness wouldn't look as if, you know, we had no money to make a style out of that. And then I found a Lithuanian photographer who, as a lot of intellectuals, as well left the United States when the country was occupied in the 1940s. A Lithuanian photographer whose name is Vaidotas Augustinas, and whose photographies were basically the biggest influence for us while thinking about how we should photograph this film. It's a black and white photography. He used to be a official photographer of, let's say, governmental events, if we can say so. Worked in magazines and journals, but he's interesting in a case because he would push the camera button 2 seconds earlier or 2 seconds later than one is supposed to push it on a ceremonial event. So he would catch things that should not go on officially, you know, a glimpse, somebody is picking his nose, like things like that. And he would always find a stranger angle to show something which is ceremonial, likewise revealing the personality or something that an official would hide from general public, you know. And when thinking of how we should photograph the film, every single take, every single shot, we had this question: how would Augustinas shoot it? You know, how would Augustinas photograph it? That was pretty easy when we found this tool, you know, of how we should do it, and it worked in a way.
Yeah, no, I think it looks it's a beautiful looking film. I don't think it, like the production design, it doesn't belie that you had maybe an incredibly limited budget to make this. Was it difficult getting funds together to make the film?
I think my generation is pretty lucky in a small country as Lithuania, where, you know, it's not the United States. You have this governmental funds that are devoted to art house films. So I used that opportunity. It was not that difficult. We also got the finance from media, from European Union program devoted for filmmaking. But yeah, location scouting, interiors, everything else was pretty tough due to the fact that we needed something authentic, having, you know, little money to develop it out of nothing. So we basically chose this particular city where the action take place, the provisional capital of Lithuania in Intl period, Kaunas, which still somehow preserved a lot of those interiors. And it's a small country. You can talk things through. They would let you into places where probably in a bigger country they wouldn't let you in. You know, people talk to people, people know people. So we would get into a bank or somewhere, some places where they basically look authentically, and we did not need to invest much or to change a lot, let's say. But as you probably see in the film, it's static, it's photographic also, because like 2 centimeters leftwards or rightwards, you would have the contemporaneity, you know, and so we would need to be very strict. And once again, that was one of the reasons why it looks as it looks, you know.
But that almost helps with the kind of the tone of the film in establishing the period, like transporting us to the period as well. I noted that your background is in, you have an MA in comparative politics, and you worked as a news editor for the Lithuanian national broadcast. And keeping that in mind, I was also struck by your screenplay, which has a lot of very, I thought, poetic dialogue. About how emptiness I mean, it's all of his themes according to this plan about a reserved Lithuania, but about how emptiness is our worst enemy, and how, I don't know, I just thought it was very eloquently written and performed.
I read a lot of what he actually wrote about it on the topic. There's pretty an extensive reading list which you can do, you know, and then internalize the style of the person, how he's putting things into words. Because I think, despite the fact that he was let's call him a scientist, but a scientist with the soul of an artist, if we can say so.
Yeah.
He wasn't that well accepted in a community of science, exactly because of that, you know, and you read it more as a literature than, I don't know, scientific writings about. And of course, those ideas are more ideas of an artist than scientific research, which you can call it, you know, a real positivist type of natural science as we understand. So once you internalize it, then it's not that hard, I guess, just to kind of imitate what he would say in this kind of situation.
You're selling yourself short, but the presentation is fantastic. I was giggling a lot whenever, because there's a couple sequences where the map of Lithuania is compared to Africa, and his talking about the dimensions of, you know, emptiness versus, and how that leads to colonization. I found very entertaining. I understand that you're a recent father.
Yes, I am. Yes.
I saw that you had posted a video because you had missed the screening in Athens originally. So congratulations on that as well.
Thanks,
beyond that project, are you working on anything else, anything new at the moment?
Yes, I'm just around my laptop. There are these stickers of a new screenplay for a new feature film. I'm planning to shoot it in 2022, I guess, if everything goes well. It should be a film based on a real story again. There was a hunger strike of journalists of Lithuanian National TV and radio in 1991 after an unsuccessful coup d'etat in Vilnius, when Soviets tried to bring us back into the empire. That was the last attempt, and the only place they managed to take over was the television. And so 700 journalists had nowhere to work, so they went on a hunger strike in front of this taken TV building.
Interesting.
So there was a TV building taken by the army and a small cabin of people isolating themselves to get free, you know. I found it somehow replicating the current situation we're in. Somehow this enclosure, this isolation that all the world is forced into, gives you a permission to rethink things, you know, to rethink what is the purpose of everything that is happening around you and what are you doing exactly.
Right.
So yeah, that's I think that should be the new film.
Interesting. Well, I can't wait. I loved your first film, and you know, good luck going forward in the process for nomination for Best International Feature Film. And I can't say enough that I'm really looking forward to your next feature as well. So thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.
Thanks a lot for good words, Nicholas.
Yeah. Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.